Hi, I'm Adam Culp and you're at Beachcast. Today we're going to share an AWS Load Balancer tutorial with Web ACL. So stick around and we'll get right on that. Welcome back. If you want to grow as a developer and make better web applications, start now by subscribing to Beachcasts and make sure to click the bell so you won't miss anything. And if you found this video helpful or have a question, please leave a comment about it. And please make sure to like the video by clicking the thumbs up button. Thank you. As with all the videos here on Beachcast, I'll make sure to put index down in the description so you can click to certain parts of the video. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Let me switch over here to my desktop view. And in here, first we'll take a look at the routes. Now, again, I've moved the domain name over to Route53 on AWS because AWS supports aliasing. And our load balancer is, rather than using the IP address of the load balancer, we're going to be putting in the alias of the load balancer. Not all DNS providers provide for aliasing, and AWS does. Regardless of the IP address of the load balancer, the name will resolve. So that's why we need to be able to do an alias. So right now we have this A record, which is pointing to an IP address. We're going to come in a little bit once we get the load balancer configured, and we're going to be updating it here at Route 53 in the DNS. Once it's updated in the DNS, then the load balancer will start getting all the traffic and not the server directly. One of the first things we need to do is we need to set up a new security group to be used on our EC2 instance. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to go ahead and create a security group, and we're going to call this, I like starting them with SG, so that way when I see the beginning of my custom names, I know exactly what it is. This one was obviously a security group starting with SG. I'll call it Beachcasts, and we'll put the LB on the end so I know it's for the load balancer. Make that a lowercase b. And I'm going to go ahead and put in the description of for Beachcast. Load balancer. And now the last thing needed to do is I need to set up my inbound rules, and I'm going to set up two rules for right now. I'm going to set up HTTP and also HTTPS. Now I'm going to leave them open at the moment. We're going to come back here later, and in the source column we're going to actually be putting in the alias for our load balancer. But for right now, I'm going to go ahead and just leave this. Actually, we're not going to be putting in the alias of the load balancer. We're going to be putting in the alias of another security group. But I'm going to leave them blank for right now. So I'm just going to create it. So now I've got the new rules here. I'm going to go ahead and update this right here. So that way I've got a good name for it as well as a group name. Okay, so now I've got that new security group that will be that'll be used by our EC2 instance. The next thing I want to do then is we need to add certificates. Now I've done this ahead of time. This web server is going to serve up web pages over SSL. It's going to use HTTPS, not port 80. So in order to do that, we need a certificate. So in the Amazon Certificate Manager, we can then add our custom certificates, or you can request certificates from Amazon, or you can buy certificates from Amazon. And of course, where you would find that, if you click on the services, go here to Security, Identity, and Compliance, there is Certificate Manager right there. And that's what I clicked to get to this page. So now on this page, again, you would go through the wizard for requesting or importing a certificate. I imported, you can see here, I've got the Beachcasts certificate here. It's issued. It's not currently in use, but it's ineligible for renewal. Now I'm using Let's Encrypt for this certificate. So I have imported a Let's Encrypt cert, so that way I can use it on my EC2 instance. At some point, I'd like to find a way to automate this. If you know a way to automate this, let me know. Because automating, I did some quick searching and to find a way to automate the import of certificates to AWS, and a lot of people say it's problematic. I didn't find anybody that got it working yet. I'm sure somebody has, but we'll go with that for now. So for right now, every 3 months, I need to import my Let's Encrypt cert to AWS. Okay, so I've got my security there, my certificate. Now that I've got the certificate, I'm ready to add an application load balancer. So let's go ahead and click over to my main tab here, go to load balancers. Okay, so now we're here at our load balancer page. And again, these are all within the EC2 menu. So we got instances, we got security groups, and farther down we have load balancers and target groups as well, which we're going to be using. So I want to create a load balancer. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Create Load Balancer. I'm going to select the first one, Application Load Balancer. And now I want to give it a name. So this is I'm going to give it the LB at the beginning to let me know that it's a load balancer whenever I see the name. And so this is a load balancer, and we'll call it Beachcasts. So we have load balancer Beachcast. This is internet facing because again, this load balancer is internet facing. And then we want to, of course, add an HTTP listener. We want to add an HTTPS listener as well. And then down here for the networks we're going to open it up to, we'll open it up to the US East 1B and 1D. You have to select 2. Even if you have just one server all by itself, Amazon does require you to specify 2 availability zones. So it would be kind of nice if they only let you choose 1 for smaller instances, but that being said, they do require you to choose 2. So I've selected 2 here. I'm going to go ahead and go to next, which is going to allow me to create or do my security certificates. So what I want to do is I'm going to choose a security certificate, and I can choose the Beachcast one that I'd created earlier because it's already there. That's why I created the certificate first, is because in this step you're going to need it. And then I'm going to just leave the default security policy. And then we want to select the security group. So I'm going to go ahead and choose this one, which is Atom Miscellaneous. And what that is it opens up port 80, port 443, and then a couple other ports that I use typically. Now, this doesn't have any permissions with it. It is just a security group. And again, this is what is going to give access for the public sites into the load balancer. And we want that to be open, right? I'm going to go ahead and click Next to configure routing. So for target groups, I don't have any target groups yet. We're going to have to create those, and then we'll come back and edit them. I probably could have created those ahead of time, but so for the name of this, we're going to call it Beachcasts 80, and we're just going to leave that as port 80. We're going to leave it as an instance, and I'm going to put in for the path is for my health checks, I'm going to put /index.php. Now, the reason you want to put a specific script here is because you want to make sure it's hitting it. If you put / and if there's redirection and things like that, it doesn't read correctly. It doesn't do the health check correctly all the time. So that's why I make sure to include some sort of file. You might want to create a dummy file instead of making it your index. Just create a dummy file for it just to do these health checks with. And then you want to register the targets. Now, in this case, this kind of got me a couple times. So I need to first off select the server that I want it to be, and then I have to click this blue button for Add to Registered, and I'm doing it under port 80. And so now I've got that registered, and I'm ready to go. So keep in mind, this is just for the port 80 target. So I'm going to go ahead and click Next to review. And we can review the information. Once that's done, we can click Create, and now it's creating that going through, and now the load balancer is configured. Now it's not completed yet, because if we look here in listeners, we've got port 80 and 443, and right now they're both listening on Beachcast 80. So we do have to make some changes, because of course 443 is not going to be a proper listener. So I need to also add in another target. So if I go to targets, and in targets we see there is Beachcast 80, I need to create another one, another target, which is going to be Beachcast 443, and we want to specify for HTTPS, and we're going to do the same thing with that one. We're going to put index.php, click create, and now it's created that target as well. So now we've got both of them. Now if we go to here and look, what happens is under the target tab, when you select that, you can see that you've got your instance there, your registered target, and initially it's going to show initial, right? Because it hasn't completed yet. And if you refresh a couple of times, eventually it will complete, but it's still checking on things. But while port 80 is trying to do that, port 443, I haven't specified my target yet. So I'm going to go into the 443 group, and I'm going to specify the same target, but notice that it's putting 443 there as the port. And I clicked add to registered, and I'm going to save, and now that one also has a target. And it's saying unused because I haven't actually assigned it yet. Now if I go back to my load balancer, and if I look in my listeners, we see that they're both listening here on Beachcast 80. I need to edit that, so I'm going to click on View Edit Rules. What I want to do is I want to edit this one. So I click the pencil up here in the top, and I'm clicking the pencil on the row as well. And then what I need to do is delete that, because I don't want to check Beachcast 80. Instead, I want to forward to, and I want to do the 443. And now once I've done that, I apply it, and then I click Update. And now that rule is correctly saying what I wanted it to say. So now I've got the two of them checking 80 and 443. We've got our certificate, we've added our load balancer, we've added the targets, and next we want to update the EC2 security group to only accept traffic from the load balancer. So let's go back to the security groups. We need to update the load balancer security group to actually address the open one. So we want it to carry this group ID. We're going to add the group ID to our security group load balancer in the input or inbound area. I'm going to click edit, and instead of leaving this open to the internet, we're going to use a security group for that. Okay, that's been done. So now the load balancer has, coming in from outside just like that. And now we also want to update our security group for our EC2 instance to use that load balancer. So we need to go to our instances, and then we need to change the security group on that instance, and we want it to use the new Beachcast load balancer. Okay, so now that we've got all this stuff specified, the one thing that we have not done yet is update our DNS so that all the traffic will then be forwarded to the load balancer. Right now, the traffic is still being directed directly to the EC2 instance, and of course, we don't want that. Okay, so at Route 53, now we need to update our main record, the A record for beachcast.com, because we don't want it to go to that IP address anymore. Instead, we want to check the box to make it an alias, and then we want to tell it the target, and we're going to tell it the load balancer for Beachcast in this case. I'm going to click save. So now it's updated the A record to be an alias to the new load balancer. And so now all traffic will be going to the load balancer. Now once it's at the load balancer, then the load balancer redirects things to the web server. So the web server shouldn't get direct access on the IP address any longer. Okay, so now that we've got the load balancer up and working, it's correctly redirecting anything that is port 443, or port 80 is also being redirected to 443 with a 301 redirect, and that's why the target group will not properly measure the health, is because port 80 will not come back as a 200 OK. It's always gonna come back as a 301. And the target groups are expecting it to be a 200 OK in order for it to come back as a healthy check. But needless to say, we are going to go ahead and continue forwarding port 80, so that way the server can properly redirect people to 443. The health check just will always be unhealthy, but we know why. So now that I've got that all configured, though, there are some other things that you may want to put in place. Now, AWS also provides denial of service attack protection. It also has firewall and some other things built in with its load balancers. So that is really a big help. However, there are some other things that you might need to mitigate. Maybe you want certain URLs to not be served up. So let's go ahead and take a look at doing some of that. I'm going to go ahead and click in Services. If I go to the Security and Identity area and click on WAF and Shield, now we want to go ahead and select the AWS WAF because we want to set up a Web ACL to protect our assets a little bit more than just having the load balancer. The first thing you'll notice is that there's Web ACL, right? There's also rules. And then down below that, you have some conditions. You can set up some conditions for cross-site scripting, for geo matching, for IP addresses, for size constraints. You can set up SQL injection protection. You can also set up String and RegEx. So I'm going to go ahead and click on String and RegEx because I have a URL that I want to make sure that people aren't able to hit. And once that comes up, we see we're presented with our areas, right? With our different regions. So I'm going to go ahead and select US East, and in US East, you'll notice I have one rule already created, and that is I named it XML RPC, a common attack vector for people trying or issuing denial of services and trying to hack into WordPress instances is to hit the XML/RPC.php. So what I've done is I've set up this rule. If I click into that, we can see the specifics of it. It's just looking for see if the URI contains XML/RPC.php, and that's all that rule does. The matching does. So the matching is just saying if that is matched, then it's going to return true, right? So now if we go to our rules, now that I've got that matching set up, then I also have to specify the rule. And I have created a rule here called XML/RPC block. If I click into that, then I can see that it's saying that when anything is matched in this filter, and then it gives the contents of it, and so that is going to promote or prompt something, right? So when something is matched, now that I've got the rule configured, now keep in mind you have to set the string first, set the string matching first, then you have to create the rule. Now I can create the Web ACL to utilize that rule. So it's multiple steps here, and this gets people sometimes. So if I go to, I'm going to create a new Web ACL, and I'm going to call this Web ACL, I'm going to call it ACL Beachcasts. I'm going to tell it I want to associate it with an application load balancer, and then I'm going to select the Beachcast, right? Load balancer for Beachcasts. And then I'm going to click Next. So now this rule is, you can create additional rules and everything here if you wanted to. I could create new conditions. Now there is already a condition here, XML/RPC, but I'm going to go ahead and just run with that. I'm not going to create anything new, just going to go ahead and click Next. So I'm going to say, I'm going to select this rule, XML/RPC block. I'm going to add that to my ACL, and you'll see that now it shows up in this section. And it says to block, right? So if that rule is triggered, it's going to block anything that brings up that trigger. And in my default action, I'm going to set that to allow all requests that do not match any of the rules, right? And in this case, XML-RPC is my only rule. So I'm going to review and create. Now that I've got that, it brings up my confirmation screen, says, hey, this is what you're doing. You're adding this XML-RPC block. The default action is allow if it's not blocked by that rule, and it's put against the load balancer that we specified earlier. So I'm going to go ahead and confirm and create. And once that's created, then that rule is now applied to our load balancer. So now nobody typing in /xml.rpc.php will be allowed to get through the load balancer to the server. So no request to that will be allowed to get through. So now that our Web ACL has successfully been created, it is now functional. So if I go into requests, if any requests are made to Beachcasts and they're blocked, they'll show up here in this chart. Right now there's nothing because we just finished creating this, so there's no traffic here. But anyway, so that is setting up a Web ACL. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. This was an AWS Load Balancer tutorial, and also included using the Web ACL to further protect an EC2 instance from the web and denial of service attacks. So if you find this helpful, please leave a comment, let me know. If you have requests for additional videos or other topics, please let me know that as well. Leave a comment down there. Also remember to subscribe to the channel. And if you enjoyed this video, please like it and tell your friends. Thank you.